Aloha, Geek fans! It's time again for a Shane Reads. And what did Shane read this time? The Walking Dead, Volume 1. Days Gone By. Jacob, this is what the show is made on. The Walking Dead. You've seen it on AMC. It's epic. It's in the 60th year of the dictatorship. This is where it all started. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so this is basically... The show is basically like... At first it was like basically a shot-for-shot recreation of this comic. Because it starts off with him, you know... he's working with Shane on the force. He's in a shootout, wakes up in the hospital in the middle of the zombie apocalypse, just like the show. But
yep, that's actually for the comic book. That's the first scene, him waking up.
Yeah. So what you see is in the show they basically just they reorder events basically. There's some stuff that happened in this pretty early on that happened way later on in the show.
Yes.
They like to do that, and I like because it gives the show its own flavor. But I actually like the comic books a lot more. I've read through. I'm not caught up. I'm pretty sure I'm like a few volumes behind at least. But I have read a lot. I've read past 100 issues. I loved this comic book series, and when I picked this up, I was like, you know, oh yeah, I heard about that show that's coming out. I want to read this. So I actually read this first, loved it, turned on the first episode of The Walking Dead, and then it's been history since. So, what did you think about this book?
Jacob, I wasn't as thrilled about this book as you were, because I had already seen The Walking Dead. Yeah. And to me, this was almost like an overview. Everything, like you said, most of the things that happen in this comic book do happen in the show, but so many things that happen because it's a comic book. It's here's a few boxes, here's a few panels, and it's done. Next thing, move on. For example, like even the thing where Rick and Glenn, they have to make themselves appear to be zombies. They put dead body parts all over them, and they have to go get some stuff. Like that's quite a to-do in the show, of course, right? You know, it's maybe 10 minutes. There's planning by other characters. Not so in the comic book. Also, in terms of other characters planning, a lot of times there isn't as big of a group doing things. Sometimes there's only a few people instead of 4 or 5 people doing things. So I missed that detail that I got in the show. And this is I guess you could say this is an inherent flaw in the comic book medium, if you want to call it that, is by the very nature of how they use text, they can't give you as much detail, right? Because they have a lot of space devoted for pictures.
Yeah. So
I liked the comic book. It was good. It was fine for what it was. But I actually, you know, the first season of The Walking Dead I think is quite amazing. The first episode of Walking Dead, which a lot of this had, it just didn't compare to me. Like I was like that made a huge impression on me. The first episode. It was the best first episode of anything I've ever watched. All my favorite shows. I still put that up. It's just so amazingly well done. The emotion is so strong. And then when I see some of the things that were done in the first episode, down here, I'm like, they move by it so quickly I don't get any emotional impact that I got when I saw, like, Rick. Those first few minutes of him trying to get out of that hospital bed. Because his muscles have atrophied, he can't walk, he doesn't have coordination, all the zombies are locked behind closed doors. You can't see any of them. He sees dead bodies that have been shot in the head. Here, it's like within a few panels, he's already encountering a whole bunch of zombies and walkers, right? I think
it's because you do that because you can't.
I mean, look at it. It's like you have him waking up, and then it's
two
pages later, the zombies right out there in your face, and they have to because it's the nature of the medium.
It's because
it's a shootout. It's one page.
Yeah, it's because you can't take like the suspense doesn't have as much effect in the book as it does in live action.
Right.
That's why you have to do that in comic books. But well, I'm really interested to hear what you thought about this book. Is because with these segments, what we've been doing is we've been talking about superhero comic books a lot.
Right.
Like this is the first non-DC or Marvel comic book that we're talking about, and your whole thing is that you want comic books to embrace the cheesiness and all that. And so
This is a different thing, though, because basically I want comic books to do that when they're talking about superhero stuff, because because that's the nature of what you're talking about. Is kind of silly and over the top. Here, like, one of the things you talk about is suspense. Suspense to me is critical to The Walking Dead. That sense of that dread of not knowing what's happening, of extending a scene and giving you emotional impact is completely lost in this medium.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think it lends itself well to the medium, whereas comic book superhero stuff and over-the-top things really lend themselves well to the medium, because like some of the books we've reviewed, like Superman All-Stars, some of the other more crazy comic books we reviewed, like God Loves, Man Kills, if you actually had just put it on the screen, just put it on like as like a real like scene for scene representation of the comic book, you would just laugh. You'd be like, this is really stupid. I can't buy it.
Yeah.
But I can buy it in this like this setting, this comic book setting. I can buy it because it's just still images. It's people talking with bubbles. That's not how people would talk.
Yeah.
It's already removed from reality. This right here, this kind of action, I don't think actually lends itself as well. Like, I actually could imagine The Walking Dead as a book, as a novel, and it'd be amazing. You can even put pictures in there now and then, but having to rely so much on the images.
There's actually a novel written by the creator of the comic books about the governor. I read it, wasn't that good.
That's why I stuck with comic books.
Yeah. But what I liked so much about this was, I think it was because I hadn't seen the show yet, and I read so much ahead of in the comics from when the show was happening. Like, by the time season 2 started, I was like already past the prison sequence, like in the comic books. So that's what I like about reading the comic books first, though, is that you get like a little bit more flavor in the show. Like, are they going to do this storyline? This one, like you have a lot of like more guesses about what's going to happen, because you know what happens in the source material. So if I ever get my hands on Volume 2, because I actually borrowed a lot of the books. I read the compendium, which is the first 48 issues, and I read the second compendium, which is the next 48 issues. And then I read some more from there. But if I ever get my hands on them, I'll have Shane here read them, and then we'll get to hear what he thought about them. But just one more thing I wanted to mention before we end this segment. Let's talk about one of the things that they changed from the comic books in the show, where they have the character Shane die, because that was at the end of season 2 in the show, and it's at the end of this book, which is basically like the time frame of season 1 in this. So what did you think about the changes that they made?
The change I've actually was more interested about involving Shane was the nature of his relationship with Lori.
Yeah.
They have sex once in the book. It was a one-night mistake, some affair that happened. It wasn't an ongoing affair, which is how they present it in the show, where they had a relationship now. It's like, my husband died, now we're in a relationship. That's not how it was in the book. And I think that's that little piece right there, that little vignette I just gave you about the book, represents the book as a whole. Right? They just gave you a little taste of things that happened. They couldn't have this big ordeal. They couldn't have Shane on the farm. Yeah. So they shortened everything. It's more abbreviated. It's abridged. So right there, that just shows you the big difference. Yeah. Right? That is an example of that difference. And so instead of having an ongoing relationship with Lori, with Shane, it was just a one-night stand.
Yeah.
Right? There you go. You just captured it right there, flavor of what the difference between this and the show. I still like this. I actually would probably give this a medium plus if I was rating it. I was kind of medium on it, but I see where this would appeal to other people, and my complaints are very specific to my taste, I think. So I'm going to give this a medium plus, Jacob.
I'm definitely giving it an A plus. So, next, we got a new comic book for the next segment. We're going back to Marvel, but it's not superheroes.
Whoa.
It's Star Wars, Volume 1. So, take it.
I do my spinny hand things, Jake. You gotta at least spin my hands.
Can't do that.
Alright, so next time, stay tuned for Star Wars Skywalker Strikes. And this has been Geeks at the Movies.